Jay Shambaugh is the director of the Hamilton Project and a senior fellow in economic studies at the Brookings Institute and a former advisor to the Obama administration and a familiar face on the program. Hey, Jay, good to see you, mate. Listen, so this report, you're looking at competitiveness in America's competitiveness. You're looking at job creation and wages. I was looking at just some of the findings and it led me to believe or ask you this question. Is the American dream dead?
Well, no. I think we don't want to say the American dream is dead, but I think sometimes people have this view of the American economy that it's this great place of lots of dynamism. It's this place where there are entrepreneurs disrupting everything in front of them. But when you start to look at the data, actually, the rate of startup creation in the United States has been declining actually for a number of decades. At the same time, the share of the workforce that's employed by new firms is much lower today than it was, say, 30 years ago. And these are really important facts when it comes to how much pressure do we see for productivity growth? And that's the kind of thing that we need to eventually get wage growth and living standards rising. So it's not that the American dream's dead, it's that the machine that's supposed to generate that dream doesn't look quite as healthy as it sometimes does.
But that's interesting. Just briefly on that. So you're saying younger firms, if you will, are employing less people than, and I think it was compared to the 1980s. But doesn't that, Jay, just simply reflect the change in work today? I mean, we're using less hands to make stuff like we did today than we did in the 80s, as an example.
Sure, that's right. But one of the things we worry about is one of the most important factors driving productivity growth in the U.S. is when you have new firms that are more productive, basically stealing workers away from old, more sluggish firms. And when you don't have as many new firms and when they don't employ as many people, that really important engine of productivity growth starts to go away. And this is one of the things, as you mentioned, we look at in this report on competition and dynamism that we've just put out today.
Well, what do these findings say, or what could they possibly do to President Trump's policy of America first?
Well, I think what it says is that if what you really care about is long-run growth, what you really worry about, we're not in a recession right now. We're not desperate to kind of pick the economy back up. What we're really worried about is, are we setting the economy up to do well over the long run? And what it says is, what we really need to worry about are things like productivity growth, worry about things like how do we fix the kind of the startup ecosystem to make sure outside of just a few big booming cities, you actually have entrepreneurs able to start new firms, hire new workers, and kind of spread that American dream that you opened up talking about.
You've got about 30 seconds. Are we basically facing a world where it's just dominated by huge companies in particular sectors?
It's something we really worry about, and I don't think it's a world we have to just accept. I think one of the things we try to do in the report, and it's one of the things we do in general, is try to think about policies that can kind of open up the economy and make it something that more people can get involved in and kind of share growth more broadly. And so I think that's the point, is that we need to think about these challenges. We don't want to have an economy that's just dominated by a few big firms. That's not a world that's going to lead to as much growth and as much wage growth for everyone.